with Trump openly criticizing Zelensky and Europe acknowledging its dependence on the US, is Western support for Ukraine starting to wane? Not now, even Elon Musk suggests offering Zelensky amnesty for a peaceful transition. Is Ukraine being set up for a geopolitical reset? What does it mean for Zelensky's fate? And what could be Ukraine's future after numerous European leaders publicly hosted and voiced support for Zelensky? Has anything changed on the ground since that spat at the White House last week? So last week we had Zelensky's visit to the White House, in which he behaved extremely ungraciously. He went there as a supplicant, as a beggar, but he's so full of himself because of the way the media has lionized him and the European leaders have lionized him, that he did not realize. He thought that he could do the same thing in the US. And Trump is a different kind of person, so did not work with Trump. And Zelensky, I believe, he deserved the treatment he got. Now, the deal is that he left the White House, he left the US, he went back to Europe, and now various EU leaders hosted him and once again lionized him. King Charles of England hosted him and gave him a lot of honor. And all the EU bureaucrats, leaders, so-called leaders, they tweeted the same message in support of Ukraine and Zelensky, essentially Zelensky, and we support Zelensky, that sort of thing. And they're all saying, and Monsieur Macron of France is saying that the Ukraine war cannot end. It cannot end with Russia keeping the territories it has conquered, and we're going to support Ukraine and so on. The question is, does the EU collectively have sufficient resources to keep the Ukraine war going? Essentially, you have two options, right? If you cannot just keep the war going and keep people dying and bleeding. You either end the war or you pour enough resources into the Ukrainian military that can defeat Russia. You can't just keep it going month after month, year after year. Does it make any sense? It's madness. Who's dying? Ukrainians are dying. And Russians. But they don't care about the Russians, so let's talk about the Ukrainians. Ukrainians are dying every day fighting the Russians. So either put enough resources into the military might of Ukraine that can defeat Russia, or end the goddamned war. Don't just keep it going forever. It's destroying Ukraine. Does it make any sense what I'm saying to you? So these European leaders, they don't like Trump. They don't like the way Trump deals with them because he doesn't respect them. He doesn't give them any respect. He doesn't show them any respect. He's treating them the way he would treat an African leader. Because, from a hard power perspective, that's where they are. They are not, the EU nations are not sovereign nations. They have no military might. Then they have small economies in recession. And these are insignificant nations. And Trump sees it that way only. That's why these people don't like him. So what's going to happen now? What's going to happen is that the EU leaders will have discovered by now that they cannot keep the war going on. And Trump has now put a freeze to the US supply of money and everything else to Ukraine. So no more US aid. Let's see how long the EU can keep this going. Maybe a month or two at most. And then they will also stop because they cannot, they don't have war economies. They don't have these big factories that produce on a continuous basis huge amounts of arms and ammunition. They don't have any of that. They don't even have sufficient money to keep their people warm sometimes during winter. So what happens now is the question. That's the question. They can keep lionizing Zelensky, etc. What's going to happen now is in a month or two, everybody is going to calm down and confront reality. Okay, that's what will happen. And then Zelensky's fate will be decided. Probably he will be moved to some European nation, maybe to Paris. Maybe Zelensky can move to Paris. He is not going to be welcome in the US anymore. But I think he will be allowed to make a reasonably dignified exit out of Ukraine. He will probably go to Paris or some other place, somewhere in the EU. Maybe he can set up home with Kaya Kalas or whoever, There's people who support him so much. So he's going to go to some European nation, and somebody else will be placed in the position of interim president of Ukraine, and they will sign this deal with Trump, the minerals deal. The US gets access to all ownership of all the minerals of Ukraine, the mineral wealth, and then the US and Russia, Trump and Putin, will meet and they will work out the framework of the ceasefire, and then the Ukraine war will end. That's what's going to happen. Europe is going to be shown its place by Trump, not by Putin, by Trump. So by doing this, the war ends. Trump can tell his population, his constituency, his voters that, see, I ended the war. I ended this wasteful war. We were wasting so much US taxpayer money. It's over. He's gonna put Europe in its place. If needed, they can do regime changes in various nations in Europe. They can do it, the Americans. And by the time the 4 years of Trump are out, they're going to have complete hard control over Europe. So that's what is going to happen. I'm actually making predictions here, and let's see. Come back here in 4 years and let's see how this turns out.